Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 78 of Teaching Tales, the podcast totally devoted to sharing stories from the world of education. As always, I'm your host, Brent, elementary principal in beautiful and currently quarantined Southern California. So we are haven't left the house in several days, but that's okay. It's all good. We're all getting healthy. And joining me today, I'm excited to get to share some stories with Dr. Edward C. Dr. Ed, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Brent?
I'm fantastic. As I said, we're housebound right now in California, but that's okay because I was reading an article this morning. There's worse places to be. I'm home.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's like we're in a fairly fortunate scenario to have the ability to even do something like a self-quarantine. In a lot of places in the world, self-isolation is just not a reality for them. And I do think that sometimes, despite the difficulties, it is important to look at what are the benefits that we have right now. There's never been a better time for self-quarantine than today. Yeah. Look at the advances that we've had in technology. It's just the fact that we can have this call today is just a testament to how much things have changed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a lesson in perspective that we can let ourselves complain, but then if we stop and say, yeah, but look where we are, and I could call Uber Eats and somebody could deliver food to my doorstep and leave it on and not everyone in the world has that. So we're going to choose to focus on the positive. So for anyone who's not familiar with Dr. Ed and his work, who are you, my friend? Give us a little background on who you are.
Okay. Well, that's a tall. It
doesn't have to be like a whole life story. Just like educational, professional background.
The first thing you probably need to know about me is I'm a Canadian-born parent, Chinese who has immigrants. Like my parents grew up in Hong Kong and China, and then they went to Toronto to study, and then came to Calgary, Alberta, for work. And ever since I was kind of really young, I've always I was one of those kids who probably had undiagnosed ADHD kind of right from the beginning. So I really, really struggled with school, probably up until around grade 7. Where I discovered a teacher who really changed my perspective on everything. And I would attribute a lot of my pivot in direction to this one teacher. And it's very much one of the reasons why I'm in education today, is because of the influence that some teachers can have. And so that is an area that I'd like to, I'm hoping I can give you a little bit of a preview of what that looks like, because I think it's very relevant for today. We were talking just earlier about, how fortunate we are to have all of this technology, and how we wanted to look on the bright side of things. And, at the same time, while this is a huge crisis, a lot of what you mentioned before, the Uber Eats, wouldn't exist if there wasn't the previous housing crisis. Right? Because if you look at the previous housing crisis, that is where we got Airbnb. That is where we got Uber. This is where we got Slack. A number of large companies, they started up at this exact time. And so times of crisis are bad. They are really, really hard. But there are also times where we start to really reflect, to be very creative, because it's a survival thing. Yeah. And I felt that way many, many years ago, in high school, as somebody who was barely passing, I did terrible at school. It was, and you can imagine, just as somebody who kind of falls behind as you keep going, because nobody knew about this stuff at the time, the ADHD, they weren't giving special training or anything for that. So you just fall behind, you just keep falling more and more behind. And I got really good at cheating. I could probably tell you more about cheating on tests than I can do about the actual learning. And one of the things that I had this deal with like one of the other students. So we would like pass our assignments back to be hand graded because the teacher didn't want to grade them. And so we would like kind of modify each other's answers. And then that's one of the ways that we were able to do it. And they're like, something's wrong here. Like the teacher saw it and was like, oh, something's not right here. Like these are not corrected. Like these are not marked correctly at all.
Yeah.
And so like the time of reckoning was coming. Let's just put it that way. And what, like, I thought, man, that's it. I'm done for, like my parents were going to be there. Like I was meeting with the teacher. I was like, oh God, how am I going to explain this to them? And you know what he did really shocked me. He wasn't like, you know what, like he's been caught cheating and you need to like, punish him in a pretty severe way. No, he didn't say that. He said, you know what? I know Ed is struggling in school, but he's creative. So it's going to be okay.
Wow. Yeah. Taking something that's how many teachers would have gone the route, the first route that you suggested, that, hey, he's cheating, punitive, boom, 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 boom. Again, not saying that cheating is okay, but he was recognizing that creativity you had and trying to move you in the right direction. That's awesome. Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Just think about how many, how far we've come, with zero tolerance policies and, very strict, rules like the suspensions, like those kind of things so quick. I deserve that. All of that. Right? But that wasn't what was given to me. Instead, the main message that I got was, I believe in your creativity. And for that reason, I'm going to give you a chance to express that creativity. And we're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. And, that was really interesting for me. I consider myself as somebody with undiagnosed ADHD, as somebody whose left side and right side of their brain is like really closely connected. There's like a bazillion connections. And if you look at the way I take notes, I don't know, you may not be able to see this, but essentially it's a mind map.
Sure.
Right? And it's just like a starburst of stuff all the time. And I think you're going to see that in all of the work that I do, is that, that's kind of how my brain thinks. It doesn't think in a linear fashion, right? Like having mind maps with different colors and stuff. Yeah. Like that's the way that I think.
And for people listening, we're doing a Zoom right now, so I'm able to see. Yeah. He's got arrows and things. So picture right now your colors, mind, your a flow chart, mind map. It's colored and I think that's fantastic, because what you're showing me right here and what people who are listening can picture is that's how your mind works. So that's the way you should be taking notes. And that would be something like for teachers listening and administrators. And it's like, however a student's mind works, it's like, don't put them in a box. All right, we're going to take, again, not to say there's not a place to learn Cornell notes and things like that, because there is, but ultimately, what's the point? What's the purpose? When you take notes to learn something, you take notes to remember something, to ingrain it in our minds. Let's do something that, because that right there may not, that would not be the way I would take notes. I like that, but that's not my default. That's okay.
Like I go to university lectures these days where I see everyone on a laptop, literally like following the slide. Like I don't even know why you bother.
Yeah.
Right. Like these people are going to learn nothing. And this is one of the things is like, writing notes in this format, like a mind map, does several things. One is it forces your mind to not write everything. I don't have enough space. I can't write that fast. If you type, you could probably type almost as fast as people talk. I cannot write as fast as people talk, so I have to summarize on the spot. Not only do I have to summarize and use less words, I also need to draw connections. I need to know the structure. I need to know how everything fits in immediately. I need to be coming up with that structure. So later when I'm reviewing it, my review includes the visual structure. This goes before this. This idea is connected to this. You have to understand that when he's explaining this, he's actually explaining the same concept.
Yeah.
And this is the big thing that I see is today, all knowledge is connected. And if we are not drawing those connections actively, what are we doing? Like, we're just sitting there. Like, why don't you just go and watch a bunch of YouTube videos today? You're gonna learn nothing. Right? Like,
again, why are you writing? If we're writing it down just to write it down, what's the point? But like you said, you're synthesizing as you're going. You're making the connections as you're going, and you're creating those neural connections, which is which is learning. Otherwise, it's just rote. It's just wasting ink and a pen that you're not necessarily.
Like, Brent, I love that kind of like. It reminds me, what you said, Brent, reminds me of the I think it was Dewey who quoted, "We don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience." So when you're in a lecture or any type of environment, how much reflection are you actually doing? Is the teacher or the instructor just like a content delivery mechanism for you? Are you actually thinking about the stuff that you learn? Like, and right now, I'm off on a tangent a little bit, but that's okay.
You're good. No, you're good.
This is how my brain works.
Keep going.
But I think the key is, right now, I'm homeschooling my kids. And I know that there are a lot of parents out there and a lot of teachers out there really scared about screen time. And you know what really irks me about the research and all the data on screen time is it totally varies. Right? Even the Pediatrics Association says, okay, screen time before 3 years, no good. And then afterwards they say, but if it's a Zoom call or if it's a video call or a voice call, it's fine. Really? Like, what's the difference, right? And so what they're saying is, and I think this is like, a lot of people are misinterpreting this to go, oh, we'll just do FaceTime and it's like totally okay. Oh, cool. I didn't know I had that color.
Look at that.
So one of the things, so one of the differences here is it's about, and I don't mind my kids watching a lot of TV, but what I tell them, like, there's two types of TV, right? So there is junk TV, which is stuff that you watch and you don't do any of it. And then there's good TV where you're watching some stuff, but you're acting on this. And it's the practice that you have that actually builds skills. You can watch all the videos you want, but until you actively practice it, until you try to do it, you fail, you improve, you iterate, you become creative with it, that's the only time you're actually going to build any type of skill.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, I love that quote about reflecting. It's because I think we think, oh, well, you learn from experience, and that's stopping short. It's when we reflect on the experiences, and I would take it the next step too is what this podcast is all about, which is storytelling, which is how many times when someone is giving a lecture or teaching or something like that, and they relate it to a story. And why is that effective for people? I mean, because in my book, I did a little research that storytelling produces neurochemicals that create feelings of empathy, of connection, and that's why storytelling is effective. So when someone tells a story, like the story that you have shared, it's like that there were neurochemicals being created in my mind as I'm listening to that. It's just like, and I will remember that rather than just say, no, creativity is important. It is, but if all you said was creativity is important, that would probably not be lasting as much as it is. You've told a story, and people who are listening right now will walk away like, wow, yeah, that's powerful. And I'm just, in terms of creativity, you mentioned like right now, you and my son's in the next room right now. He's a freshman in high school. He's working on his work right now. My daughter's a freshman in college. She's home distance learning as well, doing her work right now. But parents all over the world are doing this right now. And I think I was jotting some notes down. There's never been a better time to give students opportunities to be creative. Would you agree? In terms of
Yes.
the current situation that we're in right now, for example, in California, in the United States, the state testing, the testing that normally right now, if we were in school today, we would be getting ready to start our state assessments, our annual high stakes testing that nobody really likes, but we have to do. This year, we're not doing it because of the health crisis. That has been suspended this year. So that's like off the table. We don't have to worry about test prep. We don't have to worry about that. It's like, what an opportunity.
I know, as somebody like as an educator who like lives and dies by the results of these tests, it's kind of like, wow, what do I do with myself now?
Yeah.
Like I've been doing this whole time. And I think going back to your point earlier, Brent, about reflection, yes, now is the best time, to also be creative. But before we do that, now is also the best time to reflect. As educators, you're going to have way more time to yourself than you've ever had in your entire life. And what this means is you're going to be thinking about things that you may not have had to think about for years because you've been so busy. And sometimes we fill up our lives with these things that become like they take over our lives, like all the busyness of our lives just means that we don't have to reflect at all.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing.
No,
right? Like,
no.
We're learning more about ourselves. Like creativity comes, like I consider it to be a form, it's self-expression.
Yeah.
It's who you are expressed in terms of what you do, how you act, what you say, how you sing. Like there's different ways that people express, but this is why creativity is so powerful. It's so connected to intrinsic motivation. I mean, the big challenge of today, like with the world's information at your fingertips, the challenge is not, running through material or content delivery. The challenge is motivation, like intrinsic motivation, and that's it. If you as an educator can do that, they're going to learn on their own, and they have to learn on their own right now.
And right now, more than ever, in terms of we're not together, we're not face to face, and in terms of we've had conversations with our teachers over the last several weeks when we've done our weekly and our daily Zoom meetings and stuff like that. Like, how are things going? We've talked about, well, what if they don't do it? Like, what if we put the stuff out there and they don't do it? And we came back to the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But that I love, and I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was David Terrio. So David, if you're listening, I believe you're the first person, and I'll give you credit even if you weren't the first person who said it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, but you can make it thirsty. And I love that. And I think that is the creativity component that we're looking at right now, because our teachers, the shackles have been brought off in terms of like, don't worry about state testing right now. They have opportunities to be, and it's a challenge, no doubt. It's a challenge, but opportunities to be creative in terms of what they're asking their students to do, in terms of opportunities to create. What are you learning? Like, let's do things like that, but also creativity in how they deliver that. And because again, we can't go to their house right now. The health orders, we can't do that. And traditional reinforcement techniques and things like that, they're not available to us. So right now, the best tool we have at our disposal is making students thirsty to learn. And by doing that, if you let a student be creative, if you say, don't put them in a box, here, complete this digital worksheet. If you say, make something, and with very few parameters or it's something like that, they may make something like you, like a mind map there. Somebody may make a poster. They may make a video. They may make a rap. How many different things, because I'm at the elementary level. There's so many things to make them thirsty. So
I love that analogy of making them thirsty. And I'd like to see if we can expand that analogy to find out what they are thirsty for.
Yeah.
Because right now, and as a parent who is homeschooling 2 kids, like my oldest is in grade 1 and my youngest is in a preschool.
Mm-hmm.
They love pirates and they love ninjas. So whatever I do, and that can be the school material that we have to do anyways,
mm-hmm.
or it can be something else, it has to relate to those 2 subjects. I was also homeschooling my sister's daughter, who is just completely obsessed with Frozen. Mm. And so, we're going outside, we're building, an Olaf, and we're trying to think of how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. These are the kinds of things that we need to start with, right? Like, this is the thing is, like, creativity has to start at some point, and it has to start with their interests, because that's where they have deep knowledge, right? You need deep knowledge in order to actually be creative. Now, it may not be in a super academic area, but because they have this deep knowledge, they're going to find ways to connect it. So if I tell them, this packet, is now so this is the thing, is my kid is really into pirates and ninjas and taekwondo. And one of the days he came to me and he said, I don't want to do folding clothes. Folding clothes is boring. I said, really? Folding clothes is boring? You mean to tell me that you can't pretend that you're like a folding clothes robot and that is trying to fold clothes as efficiently as possible? You're telling me that you can't imagine that the pants that you're folding is like a board, like a wooden board that you need to chop, when you're folding it?
Yeah.
You can't imagine that the socks that you're putting into different piles are like ninja stars that you're like throwing in different areas? And I told him this: there's no such thing as boring tasks, just boring imaginations. Right? Like, if you were really creative and if you really understood your interests, you would put that into every single task. It doesn't matter how boring the task is.
It's as boring as you make it. Yeah.
Exactly. The boring comes from your head. Boring comes from your lack of creativity. Boring does not come from the teacher's material. We think it does. We think, it's because the teacher is really boring. You know what? Every teacher is boring, right? Every material. This is why I have to do like mind maps, like I have to do these like crazy ways of drawing. It's a very creative way. It's me. It's how I express myself in thought. It is how maybe if I need to doodle, I doodle, right? And this is the thing is we limit that creativity to just this one small area. Oh, I'm going to draw a painting. I'm going to be creative there. No, you're not. Right?
Yeah.
I think the key that I have here is, and this, I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go back to where I was before.
Yeah.
And that story that I was talking about, he said he's creative. And so he gave me opportunities not only to be creative in my, this is French language arts writing.
Okay.
I wrote like some stories about like this letter writing story, and I wrote it in a very different way than pretty much every other student out there. And he was like, wow, this is so cool. Let me present it in front of the whole class. Let me show off this creativity. So he created this framework, this community of people who really appreciated creativity. And from that point on, every single assignment, no matter how boring, was always related to creativity, right? Like going up into my PhD, I remember I did an internship with my supervisor, and I asked, hey, I'm really into like video games right now. Can I do like a project related to video games? And she said, nope. So I came in on the weekend and I did it anyways. And this project, which was essentially Google Earth and Warcraft 3 using voice commands and gestures, turned out to be my PhD.
There we go.
Don't let other people limit your creativity. And I remember even when I first spoke with my professor and I told him, I'm really interested in these like flip phones, the Motorola like WAP phones. I want to do some cool programs with that. And his message was like, why not just take your computer today and just do whatever you want and then assume that in 5-10 years, all of the technology is going to catch up. You can have that level of power into your phone. And so it was like, don't let the current state of technology limit your creativity. Just understanding that there are all these barriers all the time towards creativity. Yeah. And you have to recognize what they are. And you have to realize that a lot of them, like barriers to creativity, is right here in your own mind. And when we're reflecting, we're often saying stories to ourselves like, I can't do this. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling really stressed out right now. I'm feeling so alone. That's the foundation.
Yeah.
The foundation is your mindset about creativity. Is creativity a thing that somebody can give to you? No, not really. It starts with you, and it starts with your own self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I am confident that whatever teachers do, to get the student interest, whatever it takes. Like I had to start with the if they really like Jake and the Neverland Pirates and they really like Frozen, I have to start there.
Sure.
Because I know that I have the interest. And then later I have to show them that actually it was never Jake. Yeah. It was always you. It was always your creativity and your interests.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about. Is I need to understand you. Like to me, creativity is an expression of yourself. Know yourself, and then you will know creativity.
Oh gosh, that's so good. And I would wrap it up by just saying, like, the situation that we're in right now, going back to what you said at the outset, was the opportunity to reflect on what we are doing right now. And is this a challenge? Yes. But I have had several conversations with many of my friends and colleagues. I think the positives, the benefits that are going to come out of this in terms of, because teachers are being forced to be creative. They're being forced to do things that they've never done before. They're being forced to learn new strategies, new technology, new methods of instruction. I mean, whether it's Flipgrid, is a very simple example, but coming on the outside, when everything returns to normal, so to speak, look at the skill set that we're going to have on the other side. And it's again, going back to the beginning, the positive. Let's look at the positives. This stinks right now, but good will come out of this. I think a great deal of good will come out of this. So, boy, I'm inspired by your thoughts on creativity, because it's just dead on. It's dead on. So,
Brent, I really like that you mentioned this new opportunity, these new skill sets that are going to be developed. I fully agree. So, after I finished my PhD, like computer science psychology, that area, I ended up working for like a ed tech company, building one of the first interactive tabletops for education. And after that, like I've realized that it's not really just about my own creativity. It's about inspiring the creativity of others. Yep. And so that's something that I do now as a VP at a company called NUITEQ, where we build software that is mostly focused around how can we use this screen in kind of novel ways. So maybe split the screen and use it so that you can bring a bunch of different pieces together into like one coherent whole. And one thing that I've learned kind of in this whole process, and I agree with you. So what's going to happen is with COVID, as somebody who, like, my focus is all jobs, right? Yeah. Like I know in the United States, you guys really care about standards, but everywhere else in the world, they care about jobs, right? Like if you speak to any ministers. And so I'm very concerned about, well, what is happening in the fourth industrial revolution. Who is hiring, by the way, right? It turns out pretty much SMEs, like small, medium enterprises, that is less than 500 employees, are the only ones who are really the only net areas of job growth.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, like very in particular, it's those specific unicorns. It would be like the Airbnbs, the Ubers, those types are the ones that are really hiring these days. Yeah. And you can imagine, like, how different is that than right now? And you can also imagine, you know what? Like, the only job category of growth is what we call the non-routine type of jobs, right? So all the routine jobs are the ones that are declining rapidly. Yeah. They're falling.
They're being replaced. Exactly, from McDonald's teller cashiers to everywhere.
Right. Exactly. So now, like, imagine you're the CEO of McDonald's, and you've already done some level of automation, but now you've got COVID-19. You're thinking, how do I automate the rest of that stack? You know, I don't need cooks. I don't need anybody else now. Like, just friggin' machine, the thing pops out. Oh, right. There's a whole new category. Like, jobs, things are going to change, and they're not going to go back to the way that they were. Yeah. And we have to recognize that nobody cares about what you know, right? Like, I know there's so much emphasis right now on literacy and numeracy.
What can you do?
Like, nobody's going to pay you to read. Yeah. Nobody's going to pay you to be able to add a few numbers. If like actually speaking and listening, if you're really good at speaking and you're really good at listening, oh, absolutely. You can make a lot of money. Maybe you can do sales. Maybe there's like you could be a psychologist. You could be a consultant. There's a million things you could do. But, you know, writing, it's harder. But copywriting, that's different, right? If you're doing marketing. The other part would be like mathematics, like just adding and subtracting, like a lot of the things like calculus. It's really hard to make a lot of money, you know, without, like, there's very specific jobs where you can use that. But accounting, statistics, oh, every company needs that. Sure. Right? Everybody's moving into data, right? So if you know those things, you deserve a lot of money. Yeah. Right. So to me, it's a real blessing to be able to talk to my kids about the skills that I think are really important. And you know what? I might not complete all of the packets because it basically boils down to the kids. Like, the kids will try them and say, like, no way, this is boring. I'm not going to do it. And I'm okay with that. Right? Like, they'll be fine, you know, if they don't do all of this material. But this is the opportunity. This is the time to really talk about what are the skills that I really want you to develop. And a lot of them are related to, how do you think about yourself? What is your mindset like? Yeah. You know, and this is the biggest challenge I see is, as educators, we say, oh, we're training them for any future job and those kind of things. But the reality is, we train kids to be like ourselves. So whatever we do, they try to emulate. We're the role models. Yeah. So if they see their teacher who is mostly doing, like, let's say they've been teaching for 10 years or 15 years, and they've been mostly doing the same thing, then students are going to have this expectation that most of what they are going to do in their future career is going to be routine work. And if that's the case, like in Alberta, where I live, we have record unemployment of male youth who have degrees. Degree-holding male youth who can't get jobs. There are no jobs out there for this type of routine work. Sure. Right. Yeah. And so that is the challenge of our day, is we need to think about, if you see a teacher who is really creative, you know, maybe they don't teach specifically to that test. They teach in a very different way, which is just all motivation. It's all like student interest. Whoa. And that's what I've always believed. It's like, if you're doing it, I'm going to say, if you're doing it right, if you're inspiring creativity, if you're engaging students and stuff like that, the test scores are going to follow. It's all going to come together. So, well, like, Doctor, go ahead. That's the key. Well, if you don't mind, I'll just end with, educators, you're the role models. Just like the principals, you're the role models. You want your students to be creative, you got to be creative. And if you want your students to become entrepreneurs, you need to seriously look at becoming an entrepreneur. You're like, if you're afraid of technology and you're afraid of like starting your own YouTube channel or having a social media presence, your students are going to feel the same way. And so just understand you are such a huge, one teacher can totally change the trajectory of a person's life. I know this to be true because this happened to me.
And I think the vast majority of people have that teacher, that whether it moved them into education, but we have that one teacher who believed in us, who inspired us, who gave, and like in your case, who extended grace and realized there was a reason behind the behavior. And I think that's just a great lesson for all of us. Well, Dr. Ed, this has been fantastic. For anyone who is listening and is like, gosh, I want more, where can they get a hold of you and connect with you online?
Absolutely. So you go to, on Twitter, it's at Dr. DOCTORET. So Dr. ET on Twitter. You can also visit the company website that I work with. It's called NUITEQ.com, NUITEQ.com. And there's a lot of information about some of the different types of products that we offer, but also it's about creativity. And my focus there has been on how can we deliver a curriculum, a new, like a fourth industrial curriculum, something that is really going to help people get those future jobs. And It boils down to Socratic method. It boils down to creativity. So we'd love to share. I have a bunch of white papers and stuff on future jobs and the skills needed to get them. There's some really good data already from the World Economic Forum that you guys need to look at. You know, if you're serious about jobs, there's some really great stuff out there.
Very cool. Very cool. Definitely we'll check that out. So, well, Dr. Ed, thank you again for sharing your story, and for folks listening, thank you for listening. Hope you got something out of this. And as I say so frequently, even if you didn't, listen, I did. I got something out of this, so it's all good. So, and if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe. Again, you can find Teaching Tales in iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, pretty much Stitcher, or you can listen directly on the podcast page at brentcoley.com. And until next time, have a good one.